Have a seat, have a seat. Do come and join me in my lair.
You're not going to be Paxman, are you?
No, I'm not. I mean, I wanted to get stuck into, first of all, your transport function, your mission to get the best deal for passengers and road users.
Yep.
I mean, we've heard today about the huge amount of investment that's going in. You know, we have got Thameslink coming online pretty soon. We've got Crossrail starting up at the end of the year. With all this going on, you know, is this a battle you're winning? Are you getting the best deal for passengers?
I think we're all winning it to a degree, because I think the thing that marks out this conference, as opposed to if this happened 3 years ago, say, is just the increasing political alignment and everyone agreeing that transport's a good thing. It needs to work for the country, not for its own sake. It needs to work for the country, it needs to work for jobs, transport, etc. There's a tremendous political alignment about transport and the need for investment. And as you say, there's a vast amount of money being spent. You couldn't actually, I don't think, spend more money at the moment on the rail or on the road, on the strategic road network, without causing too much disruption. So I think you've got a tremendous sort of political consensus, which I think the industry and users need to make the most of to get that benefit.
From a passenger perspective, I mean, where do you see the gaps at the moment? There's all this money going in. Where are the gaps? What's really getting up their noses at the moment?
I think for all transport users, it's very similar themes, really. One of which is just the day-to-day delivery of the transport infrastructure. When I'm catching a train, I don't hang around waiting for a strategy or a vision. You know, I want the 10:11 to arrive on time, and I think rail passengers' needs are astonishingly prosaic. They want the train to turn up on time. They want to get a seat occasionally, would be nice, and they'd like some value for money. And when there's disruption, they'd like it handled well. Road users, from our research, you can see that the key driver of satisfaction is anticipated journey time. If your road journey takes roughly the amount of time you think it should do, you're a pretty happy person. You've set the timetable on your own head. And if you're disrupted through an accident or roadworks, you want to be put back in control with information so you can get on. Buses, much more mixed story around the country, outside of London. Some very good bus services in some places, bus services in other places being thinned out. But I think it's very much to do with, A, the day-to-day delivery. That's what people really judge transport networks on. And when there's more people using them day-to-day, there's a stress there. And secondly, when you're rebuilding them, don't antagonise people so much that they wish you hadn't actually made the investment.
Well, talking about when you're building, and let's focus on rail at the moment, because obviously you look at rail and roads. You launched with the rail delivery group this morning, consultation on ticketing and pricing for ticketing, or is it just about ticketing? I mean, you've also been reflecting on your blog about the way that as all these new services, these bright, shiny new stuff comes online, how do you actually manage passenger expectations with all this new stuff? You know, where are we? From you, are we actually making progress? Are we making it incredibly complicated for passengers in terms of buying tickets? Are we making it easy enough for people to use this new network?
I think in some cases it's been made very easy. I think London shows that with Oyster and with contactless, you can take away a lot of that complexity. What we're seeing is for longer distance ticketing, it has become hideously complex over the last 30 to 40 years, where we've been sitting on this problem, and it's been getting worse and worse and worse and worse. And so what we did this morning with the Road Delivery Group was to launch this consultation to put some options in front of government to actually reform that. But the day-to-day delivery, I think, the timeliness of the rail service, sticking to the timetable, that's the key thing that passengers want. And when it's taken away from them, especially if they're commuters, they're really grumpy. I'm convinced after years of doing this job, you can't please commuters, but just don't displease them. It's a slightly different thing, so just don't irritate them, just keep them sort of neutral.
Well, I suppose one of the things, I mean, the consultation, I imagine, will be around how easy it is to buy the right ticket.
I think it's less to do with that, actually, funny enough. Really, this is about getting government to make some really difficult decisions about regulation and about the balance between the taxpayer and the fair payer funding of the railways. You'll all know that over the last 10 years, the balance has shifted from roughly 70% taxpayer to 30% taxpayer. 70% of the railway is now funded day-to-day by the passenger. It's a tremendous shift. And whilst I don't really comment on whether fares are expensive or cheap, people want better value for money. That's what they're seeking.
Let's talk about roads. I mean, are we in a better place since Highways England was given its long-term funding arrangements?
Yes.
Okay, in what way?
Well, you just said it. They've got a long-term funding.
Yeah, but how does that impact the passenger? How does it impact the road user?
I think 3 ways, one of which is you've actually got some money being spent rather than a year-to-year budget, which was continually raided to pay for the overruns on the rail budget, which is a hopeless way to do anything. Secondly, that investment is the thing that in the long term will make most difference to road users, is increasing the capacity and expanding the road network into becoming more and more of a managed system rather than just a road that you turn up on. When you go and use the M3, the new M3 section here, which is Smart Motorway, it's more like a railway, oddly. You know, it's got signals, it's got information, it tells you to do things. It's becoming more of a managed network, and with the number of people using the network going up, you've got to do that.
So
that
great,
investment will
great
make a difference.
success. Highways England's got loads of money. Meanwhile, on the local roads, not enough money, not enough investment, and it's the complete opposite. Is that a fair assessment?
We don't cover local roads, so I can't comment on that. But clearly, it's a real issue.
But buses use local roads. You cover buses.
Yeah, buses. I think bus users exactly the same priorities. They want to get to work on time. They want to get to school on time, or whatever. And congestion is slowly sapping the bus market everywhere. In London and in other places, the buses are slowing down. You have to put more buses on. That becomes more expensive. It's an absolutely vicious circle. And I think anything central government can do to help local government bus congestion is vital.
So presumably there is a link between investment, local roads investment, and bus effectiveness.
Yeah, I think there is. It makes it better for everybody. If you make it better for bus passengers, you by and large make it better for drivers as well. And I think that you've got to have much more investment in local roads like that in order to match what's happening on the strategic road network.
So is that, for you, is that a priority for an organisation like Transport for the South East?
Yes, I think it is. And I think the key message that I would hope that Transport for the South East would take away from today is to frame your arguments, frame your debates, and frame the discussion around users. Because you can talk in abstract economic terms all you like. And as we just heard, if you talk about engineering, nobody really knows what the hell you're talking about. But actually, you're building links between communities. You're moving goods. That's what it's about. So frame it in user language. And I think you've got a much better chance of securing investment.
So the South East, as we heard, is incredibly busy. There's a huge amount of economic activity going on. A lot of people live here. How do the issues that passengers and road users, how are the issues that are facing these people in the South East, how do they compare to the rest of the UK? Are there any specific issues which come out of your surveys?
I think the biggest difference is the absolute reliance in London and the South East on commuting in and out of London. It's a kind of unique experience, the amount of rail commuting that goes on in London and the South East, and the reliance on this area, I just don't think you see in other places. I mean, being blunt, when you have a rail strike in and around London, it's chaos. When you have one in Manchester, it's a bit of a nuisance.
But there's a comment on Slido about the ease with which you can get in and out of London compared to going east-west in this particular region.
Yeah, we've neglected links to all sorts of places. I think whether it's the coast of Britain or whether it's around London and around the southeast or wherever, and those links are being filled in. I think the east-west rail link is a fascinating development. Quite why we're building a railway and not a sort of super Uber-guided busway, I'm not sure. But anyway, we seem to be building the past in that respect. But let's carry on with that.
So you've talked about, yes, obviously money makes a big difference, but are there any other things which this new subnational transport body in the South East you think should be really trying to champion?
I think one thing it's got to crack is facilities for HGV drivers. I think the way we treat lorry drivers in this country is absolutely appalling. Everything in this room has arrived on a truck, virtually. The whole economy is reliant on trucks. The South East is super reliant on trucks. And you've got the link to the continent as well. I think the facilities for truck drivers are absolutely appalling. And sorting that out, especially in the approaches to Dover, is absolutely crucial.
Little look forward, and we're talking about technology a bit later on this afternoon, but the key issues for you remain, I suppose, value for money, punctuality disruption, service cancellation. I mean, how do you... I always say that the biggest enabler in my life in terms of public transport is the app which tells me when the bus is going to arrive. Are there other technology things which you see which are really going to transform those key measures?
Yeah, I think technology can always help, but technology supports people in making decisions. It doesn't sort of do it for you. And I don't think it replaces the need for human beings in transport systems either. You can't replace everybody on the railways by an app. It's just not going to work. People want to see staff. So yes, technology will help, but again, I wouldn't frame debates in sort of how technology is going to help. Well, you say what it's going to do. Will it make the motorways better? Will it make them more efficient? Will it make the railways cheaper or whatever? So I think frame it in user language again.
Finally, this is all about, we talked, and the Secretary of State mentioned earlier in the video about the need to make this partnership between the private sector, the public sector, and it's all about partnerships. Do you see that this rise of, I suppose, a backlash against private investment, the rise in I suppose, Corbyn-inspired populism, and the threat of renationalisation? Do you see that as being having an impact in the South East?
I think all those debates about ownership and structure are a complete distraction, because the underlying needs of people to get round, the underlying needs of transport are the same regardless of who's in power and who owns it, frankly, and whether it's private or public. I think it's it's the delivery at the sharp end that really, really matters. And getting sidetracked into debates about nationalisation is just pointless.
Well, sidetracked into debates about it, or, I mean, should we fear it?
I've got no idea, because I think the proposals are very unformed at the moment. They may well become more formed. I mean, I think it's a matter of understanding what the proposals are and what they're actually going to lead to. Because if you ask people, do you want nationalisation with less investment, they might answer differently if you just ask about nationalisation.
Last bit of advice to the Transport for the South East. What should they spend their £1 million on first?
Oh, blimey. What's on the list? That's a very good question. I think creating a very strong priority list that people can agree around. So you've got your top 3 priorities, absolutely agreed. The evidence behind them that that's what users want, that's what the most benefit's about, and getting a really focused, concrete outcome. Because if you look at the most successful transport lobby on earth, it was probably the cyclists in London. Very simple need expressed again and again and again, endlessly. And look at what's happened.
Great. Anthony, thank you very much indeed.
Yeah,
You're going to be back to speak a bit later on, but now, a round of applause, Anthony Smith. Thank you.